Welcome to On Power and Peoples with Renee Malay. The show is about depth of any conversation that will be held here, as real as it is, because we are about realness. From relationships, religion, marriage, faith, philosophy, economy, politics, you name it all, honey. Any subject matter that concerns you. And of course, good vibes. We are here for it. Now stay tuned for the next coming episode.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's a
I'm
pleasure to be here.
I'm glad that you made time for this because it's so important, especially during the exam time.
Yeah.
Kids need this motivation. All right. So you grew up believing that you were an average student. And
I was actually below average
below
because I
average.
used to get 7 in maths. And that's, if I've done very well, I used to get 15.
What?
Like our anerdome, when they say it was bad. It was extremely bad.
Wow.
So, yeah.
From what age did you realize that, like, for how long did you believe that I am below average?
So I started school, and I come from a village where education is not important. We don't even understand why we do it. We just have to go to school because there's nothing to do. We can't sit at home, and all the other kids are going to school. So I started school very early. I would say I was average. I was okay. I was smart, average enough to get 50. And then I passed until I got to grade 10. And when I got to grade 10, I chose maths and physics. And I chose it on a basis that you were considered smarter if you from a maths class compared to other classes. So you were valued. And then I joined that class, and that's where adolescence came in, being in a messed up environment where people don't even know why they should study and stuff. And I would say I just stopped because of the environment. I stopped studying because no one was studying. So that was just the norm there. So that's why I was really failing.
So you went from being an average to having to stop studying,
Yeah.
and at the same time you picked up a subjects that you did not love them, but you did them because you wanted validation of your intelligence.
Yes, definitely. And which is something I'm very thankful for. Uh,
Yeah, well.
Definitely. I'm glad that I chose the maths class. And so, yeah, I joined the maths class, and I failed for the first time in my life in grade 10. And then because I had respect for teachers, and they condoned me to the next grade. I got to grade 11. I failed as well. Respect for teachers, I was condoned to matric.
What?
And I failed. I passed with a higher certificate in 2008, and I considered that a failure because there was nothing much I could do with it. And that's where my life really changed, because I had friends I was in class with who had university acceptance letters, and they passed with bachelor's degrees, all of them. And I was like, so these guys will go to university and I'll be left here if I don't do anything. They will buy cars, they will have good jobs, and I won't have anything. That's what changed everything. That's where I changed.
As
And
a
I went back to class, and that's where things changed.
as a below average student, do you think there was much support from you from home and at school?
No, there was no support from both. So at home, my parents had to come in Joburg and stay here because of work. And I stayed, I was living by myself. And at school, there wasn't, the teachers were really trying, but we didn't understand what they were trying to do. As a child, like they come and talk and they explain, they bring motivational speakers, but you just blinded as a child. You don't get it.
Because I think if there's one thing that parents are not aware of is that there's special schools, and there's so many parents who don't want to take their kids to special schools because they feel like they want their kids to be able to fit in the environment of what's considered as normal kids. But how important is it for a parent to realize that my child is struggling and she's not getting enough help, or he's not getting enough help, and there's nothing bad about her, or she's not disabled, let me take her to special school. Like, how important that is.
But I think before we can take when you take a child to a special school, it's when you've identified that they have a need. They've tried and they have failed because of a problem which they
Just say
have.
they do.
But majority, it's because of the environment is not educational conducive for someone to want to study. That's the problem. I think we in the township and in the villages, there's no power which drives people that to study. Not that they cannot do it, not that they. It's because of that and poverty as well. If you stay in a township and you live in a single room with your parents, who's your mom is the one who's working hard, you have to sleep in one room with your other siblings. Your father comes back drunk. It affects you as well. It makes you even not focus. And majority of the kids at school, they come from that background. So it becomes very hard for them, even if they would want to. There's nothing which really pushes them. So I think we need to understand. So no need to take that child to a special school, but rather maybe change a school and put them in a school where learning is conducive and it's encouraged than there. Because I feel like in my class, in my maths class, we were 47. I was the only one who passed with a bachelor's degree with a university endorsement. So the rest of 46 they failed.
What?
So it's really bad. It's really bad, and it's because of the environment. I don't think it's because they were not smart, but the environment was just not okay. Home or even the community as well. It's just not okay. When they get to school, it's hard to even focus because you don't even know what you're doing it for. So for me, if it wasn't for my friends passing with bachelor's degrees and going to university, I don't think I would have gotten any motivation to go back and do well. So
Do you think that's because they don't have dreams, or it's a matter of truly their environment that they're in?
it's because of the environment that they live in and what they see around them, because they hardly see someone who has went to university. So it's almost impossible.
But how
I
how
remember.
then do we change that? Like, what could be changed for other kids who are from rural areas, other kids who are from like your squatter camps? What can be changed? Like from poor backgrounds, what then can be changed? That as much as you're from this, but you can be able to achieve this, and you can be able to work hard to be inspired.
I think it has to start with the parents, and it's not going to happen overnight. If the parents can understand how the environment they've set their kids affects them when it comes to their schooling, and try to change it. So instead of my father being abusive towards my mom while I'm looking, try to do things differently. It will take time, but eventually I think we can get there. Instead of going to work and get money and drink it, bring it home and make sure that I sleep with my stomach. Because I remember when I was in primary, my mom used to try. She would send money home, but my grandmother was someone who was, she had a very good heart. So when my mom sends money home and grocery home, my grandmother would take it and share it with. My grandfather from my mom's side was married to 3 wives. So she would take the bribe pack and divide it into pieces and give the other
Yeah.
families. So we only have food for like a week. After that, we go back to zero. And when I go to primary, there was feeding schemes. I would go with an empty stomach. There's no breakfast, nothing. Breakfast
You
was
like me, we had it hard.
it was hectic.
We had it hard, boo.
It was hectic. I go to primary, and while the teacher is teaching, I can smell bread and peanut butter outside. I can't focus. I'm hungry. That would affect
I
me.
think with me is that I had to learn to work on a hungry stomach. And that's just one thing I had to learn from an early age, because I was very aware that um, it will take us years for our parents to change, or for the situation at home to change. So it's kind of like you accepted that as much as my mom was working hard, she's not working smart, because there's nothing more that could be done if she does not go back to school or do something that's going to, or start into businesses. So it's something that you had to learn from an early age, that this is actually going to be my kind of life until the story is changed, you know? And that also gave me so much hunger to want to do more, because I never wanted to see myself in that kind of environment anymore. I never wanted, like, that made me work so hard, you know. And I can imagine. I'm different, but there's somebody else who's like, "Ugh, I would rather just go and date this guy so that he can give me money. So we're very different people, and this also affects your grades. How then do we say that as much as you are from that kind of environment, what can drive a child to rise up from that and have a positive mindset that you had?
I think something just has to come and motivate you. Something has to push you. Like for me, now it was because my friends passed. And imagine this: I only did this on the exit of matric,
Yes.
like right there. I think if I had this motivation in grade 10, I would have never failed. I would have finished matric at the age of 16.
And you were condoned twice
I was
in
condoned
2 grades.
in 2 grades.
You were below average.
I was not even below average because average is
You were
50.
like your
Dom
FFF
dom,
students.
like FFFF student.
And that takes a lot to change your mind to start believing that I am done with believing below, like believing so little of myself.
So you know what happens? What happened was that when I went back to school, I used to think at the time I'm non-religious, so I don't believe in a higher power. So at the time, I used to think that kids who were smart in the class, who were the best in class, were given some sort of a brain to be able to get whatever they're teaching and grasp it very quick. And when I went back to class, what I've done was I went back to those guys and I was like, how do you guys do it? And they would be like, look, when I go to class, uh, what I did was I went back to the students who were the A students in class and I asked them, how do you guys do it? And they were like, look, we are interested in what's being taught. We're interested in solving it. So instead of getting home and putting the books away, we just want to solve it. We find it very interesting. And I used to think it was a blessing from God for them to be smart. And I think that affected me as well because I would pray about it and be like, please God help me. I just want to be like Akani. I want to be like him. So until he told me that when I come back home, I interested in what the teacher was teaching me and I want to study and study and study. And over time I become good and it becomes easier and easier. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go back to class, and I went back to class, and I did that, and they also recommended some studying material. They were like, if you don't understand something, ask until you get it. So I became, I would ask and ask and ask, and in that class, it was 2009. I became the best in my class. They knew, like, I became the best, and I even told myself that I want to be a doctor.
So from, I love how everything it was actually. So from being an FFFF student to being a student. So we would say from the conversation that it's not, nobody's born a genius and nobody's
No.
born an A student.
No one, even someone who's not an A student, no one is born like that. As long as you don't have any problem in your mind, you can do anything. It just requires practice and practice and practice. So for a student who's an A student, is that they practice a lot, and when they practice a lot, they become good. So it becomes easier when an equation comes. They just get it very fast. But if we're to exercise our mind, all of us, even someone who does not have matric today, who left school in grade 10, if they can be a doctor if they want to.
Yeah, yeah.
Because success requires sacrifice. You need to sacrifice yourself, and studying requires you to sacrifice your time, and that's time with friends, time with family. It's easy to just chill by the corner and just talk and talk and talk and
And
talk.
it's actually okay to not fit in the group and trying to impress your friends and giving them more time. Like it's okay to say no to I'm not playing.
Definitely. So for someone who has left from grade 10, they can be a doctor if they want to. It's possible. What do they need to do? They need to go back, sacrifice time, 2 years of going back to grade 10. But people have pride in themselves. Because I'm now 25, I cannot go back to grade 10. If you go back to grade 10, study, sacrifice your time.
I think with me as well, it was a matter of because I did not do good with maths, and I was so ashamed. I'm like, I don't want to go back to that school again. I don't want people to see. People know me as a smart person. I need to maintain that standard. I need people to still continue seeing me that, oh yeah, she's still smart. So for me, going back then made me feel like
Yeah,
you have failed,
there is
and
that
not
pressure.
having to realize that the biggest fail is not even it's not going back.
No, the
The
biggest
biggest fail
failure is
is
the after effect. When you
yeah.
have to meet with your friends at a friends reunion and
And
there.
nigga, come 10 years down the line, and you wish that you would have went back and would have
Exactly.
repeated your grades, would have changed something about it, because at the end of the day, we are growing, we are not getting any younger.
And at the time, 10 years later, you'll feel like it's late and it's never too late. Because it's a matter of
It's never too
sacrificing.
late.
It's a matter of sacrificing 4 years of your life, 1 year redoing your
But we
matric if it's
see we
bad.
see so many youth at this moment who are dropping out of school. What can you say to them?
Don't drop out of school. Definitely don't drop out of school because I've seen it with family members from home. One of my family members would earn 3,500 after working
Ish,
for
guys,
9 years as a security guard. You don't want that.
you don't.
You don't. So it's either you will have that because other if you're lucky you might earn 5,000 maybe. But how are you gonna take care of the kids? You can never do much with such. But if you go to school, you don't drop out, you sacrifice those couple of years, you can afford a better life. You can afford a house, you can afford a car, you can afford to take your kids to school. A
So
good quality
it's
life.
it's being said lately that education is not that much important, because there's so many graduates who are sitting down with their degrees, their
Yeah.
diplomas, and their certificates, and nothing is happening.
So education is very important. I feel like even if you don't wanna go, even for artists, it's very important. Like that process of sacrificing your time, it means it can. I've seen rappers even on interviews saying that, what was I gonna do with algebra? What was I gonna do with a locust and knowing a locust? Those things teaches you principle. They teach you. You apply it in your
Yeah,
life
yeah,
indirectly.
yeah.
You won't have to really apply it like straight, but you apply it. It teaches you patience. So if you were to start a business, you are very patient. You know what it takes in order to do it.
Yeah.
So for the graduates who have completed and they are not getting jobs, um, they didn't waste, but they need to understand why they're not getting jobs. It's either they've studied the wrong course, or it's either the industry, the environment has changed, the industry has changed, the qualification they've studied for is no longer in demand. We just need to look around those things, or maybe they're
But
not
I feel
applying
like,
enough.
when is it gonna be? Because if you're saying that they probably studied a wrong cause, what if the wrong cause is something that I was passionate about and I've worked so hard in school
I think
to be able to work for something that I enjoy and I'm passionate about? Because more than anything, you're gonna be spending your whole life doing this thing, so you don't want to be doing something that you don't love.
forever. So I don't think passion exists for anything. It's the hardest. Choosing a career is the hardest thing. But we fail to understand that if I go and study HR, I will not end up in HR my whole life. Passion does not exist because you will only realize that passion doesn't exist when you have to pay your bills at the end. I feel like the drive for money, as long as it's not hardcore labor that will affect me physically, I wouldn't mind being a teacher. As long as I'm compensated and I can take care of my kids, I would love that job. I wouldn't mind doing anything.
Can I dispute that? Because
Yeah,
I
sure.
honestly do feel that when you're passionate about something, you're able to grow in it, you're able to want to learn more. There's so many people who are sitting down with just their degrees and they don't want to learn more, they don't want to do more simply because they're not passionate about it. But put somebody in something that they're passionate about, they want to study more, they want to know more, they want to grow more. And I think even with artists as well, even with entrepreneurs, businesses, people who get involved with what they're passionate about, they're able to grow that because it's rooted in passion. So you don't wake up stressed and be like, flip, I'm gonna do
But
that thing.
I,
But you wake up with passion that I want to grow in that thing.
I,
I
f-
want to.
I feel like it's different with. Sorry to cut you off. I feel like it's different with a talent. A musician, they don't choose to be passionate about music. It just happens. But majority of us, we have to go to school and study something. I don't think there's anyone who's passionate about being a lawyer. I've never been a lawyer.
They are. There's some
It's
people
a,
who
it's
love solving
I
problems and being the voices
yeah.
for someone.
It's because I chose it. But if I'm a musician, it's someone who record every day, and then you become passionate. I can choose anything randomly. I can choose accounting that I like
That's
numbers.
a question. That's actually a topic for the next
Yeah,
day.
we should
with
have.
with the whole passion thing, because we see
Yeah,
so many people who are
because
very much
with
successful, who are doing so many things in, let's say, in the entertainment industry, in the business industry, in something that they really are passionate about. And I honestly feel like if you're not passionate about something, that it can't really grow. Like you can't grow a company that you don't love, or you can't grow
there's
a
no way I
company that
cannot.
you don't like. So you have to be passionate about it. It's something that you need to be loving. It's something that you're looking
I'm
forward to.
I'm passionate about money.
Yeah,
I
and
love
that's
money,
okay. But there's people who
and
actually are passionate about other
and
things that also bring in the
I
money.
don't think there's anyone who have went and studied a medical degree for 6 years and did their 2 year internship and a 2 year community service. That's a total of 10 years. That person, I don't think 4 years later, working as a doctor, they wake up and be like, "Oh, I love being a doctor." Your passion is done, finished at that point. It's a situation I have bills to take care of. So I had a friend of mine, a colleague of mine.
So actually, this is so we're going back to having to work something and then having to work in something and then later getting tired of it.
Yeah,
So you're
that's why I'm
saying
in
even
the
if you're
beginning you go and
passionate
study
about
because
it,
you think you're
but you get
passionate.
tired of
You
it.
get tired
But I think as human
eventually.
beings, we are like that. We all like
Exactly.
that.
That's why I'm like, if you're gonna choose based on passion,
Yeah.
it's a bit of a problem. I have a colleague, a friend of mine, who studied engineering and he wanted to be in the field, and then he completed his degree and he went worked in the field to be an engineer. And then he used to think he's passionate about dressing in a work suit and
I
doing
think
that.
working is tiring, but rather
Yeah.
be tired in something that you love.
So this
Okay,
guy
cool.
really loved the idea of being an engineer in the field. And then he was paid little money when he tried to look at the needs. He realized this was not enough and passion was just not enough. Like I go and this is hard labor. I go and I thought I was passionate, but now I need to take care of my kids. And he ended up in the office as an engineer.
I feel like the art industry is something that is very nice. If I am to do this for the rest of my life, I
You need
think
passion.
I would really, I wouldn't mind. Honestly, I'd be passionate about. So the
Yeah.
art industry, but
But
maybe other than
that's why I'm
anything,
like,
maybe
other
that's the
things,
problem.
anything
Yeah.
that you choose to go study for, I don't think, like, if you
So
try
what are
to
we
mix.
saying? Sorry, what are we saying then to other kids that want to do something they love, that are passionate, that they're working very hard at this moment?
We need to understand what makes you love it. When I was young, there's a friend of mine who used to say he want to be a bus driver because he thought it was cool. He thought he was passionate about it. Majority of these things is not that we're passionate about it. He was like, if I can be a bus driver, that would be the best job for me, and that's how we choose these careers. We're like, oh, because I'm good in tourism, I like the idea of being a tourist and being in a boat or a plane, and these are not passion.
So what are you saying? Are we saying to those upcoming students who are in matric at this moment, who are in grade 11 at this moment,
what
what then are we saying to them?
what we're saying to them is that they need to, at the end of the day, we come from a very poor background, and we want to change our situation. We don't want to get ourselves in choosing careers which we think we're passionate about, only not to find employment at the end of the day and get
Yeah,
depressed.
yeah,
What I think we need to do is we need to assess the environment, understand
yeah.
which qualifications are in demand, which qualifications will help us get a job
True.
once we're done, and then go into that. Anything else, passion, you'll stay at home with your passion. And it's depressing. It's hard to come back with a degree and you are staying at home and
Yeah, it
you are
is. It is.
because you were passionate about something. So yeah.
Right. I get where you're coming from. What's the message that you would be like? What's if you were to advise a matriculant at this moment who's failing, who does not believe in themselves, what is it that you would say to them?
What I would say to them is that they they need to choose greatness in life, and they need to ask questions, be interested in what they're doing in their studies, and ask questions and try to solve it. If they don't understand it, sacrifice their time. So for an example, if for a smart kid it takes them 5 minutes to do something, Rather take them an hour, sacrifice those hours. The more they
Mm.
sacrifice the hours, the better it'll be reduced to 30 minutes to 20 minutes
Until
until
they get
so
it right. Do
until
you
they get it
also
right.
think that dating, because the teen stage, everybody wants to be dating. Do you
Uh,
think that also is a contribution factor of why some students
it
get to be,
it is to fail, right?
yeah, get to
Yeah,
feel.
it is. It is so much because as I said, it's easier not to do anything, and dating is nice. You just chill with your boyfriend or your girlfriend, and it's so fun. But at the end of the day, does it bring you anything when you broken up with that person?
No, it does
It
not.
does not. When you have kids and you have to take care of them, it does not. So
They gonna
rather
leave you.
sacrifice. They leave
They gonna
you.
leave you
They
pregnant.
leave you, and yeah, it's really hectic.
Yeah, well, I also do think with that, I feel like if you have so much time to invest in a relationship, I think that's much better if you take that time and invest in your schoolwork, because that's what's going to grow you, and that's what's going to
Definitely.
create the version of yourself that you want for yourself. So I would say to any student at this moment that is probably failing or not doing so much at school, to focus on their schoolwork and to
Mm,
leave the friends. If you are to be a loner, rather you be a loner and be successful
mm.
than be with your
And drive a nice
friends
car.
and drive a nice car, girl, because it's hard out here getting your lift from your peers.
It's hectic. Eh?
And
It's
feeling entitled. So, right, this one umfitile ko taxi.
mm,
So it's so important to focus and to focus on yourself and your grades.
mm.
And yeah, man, I think you've had Given Baloyi. He was an FFF student, I would say, because he used to believe so. I don't believe anybody is like that,
Yeah.
but because he used to believe so, and he holds a bachelor degree and an honors in IT, right?
Yeah, so I hold a BCom degree
Become
in
IT.
IT
Imagine
and
that.
an honors degree in business management, and I'm planning to do an MBA, a master's in business
Woo!
administration.
So
And
much pressure.
just think about it from a student who used to get 7 in
Mm.
maths
And
to
7%. We're not
like
saying seven, level
7.
seven, seven
And
in math.
even worse, after I passed matric, I went to UJ and I studied a BCom degree. That's an accounting
Mm.
degree, and I've never done accounting in my life at all.
What?
I've never seen nothing. I had no idea about
Wow.
a sub ledger or a journal. Zero.
Wow.
I've never done business management in my life, and a friend of mine told me at school, he was like, "Look, if they accept you and they say they want 16 maths for this and you got it, it means you can do it. And
Mm.
then just put in more effort, you can do it." And I did it. From getting 15, after that, I did an honors in business management. From 15
Guys,
to
only the sky is the limit. If Given Baloyi
definitely,
can do it, who are you not to do it? If he can go from getting 7% to studying a degree of become accounting, something that he has never learned, something that he has never even studied the basics part of it, but he was able to obtain a degree in it and be able to obtain marks that makes him admitted, that gets him admitted to do
honors.
his honors. So if he can do it, and he's from all the way from Kwamalamulele, right?
Yeah.
Kwamalamulele. It
In a
doesn't really
village called
matter where
Kabele,
you come from.
you
It
can
really
do
does
it.
not matter where you come from, whether you come from rural area, whether you come from squatter camp, whether you come from good schools, whether or not. But do not let yourself be limited to the environment that you're in to believe that it's not possible for you.
Even worse, when I went to university, I did BCom, which are subjects which I've never done, and I've done IT, which is something I had no
And
idea.
that's IT. It's like
Pro-
something that you really
yeah,
have to work hard to do.
I
Like
had
it's
no
for
idea
for
of
those smart ones. You know,
yo,
when you do the
yo,
BSc in biochemistry, and then there's other side is become ITs and become you like become
yeah.
accounting.
So the odds were very against me. Like
Um,
IT, I had never done programming. I had no idea that the applications we have on our
how
phones.
did you do it though?
Yo, it was hectic. Okay, sacrifice. And at the time, I was using NSFuzz,
Were you
and
dating?
I was, I was.
No girlfriend, no boyfriend or girlfriend shall stop you from reaching your dreams.
Not even. And I almost failed that year.
But you made it.
I made it.
And right now you
I
own
survived.
properties. Right now you're a
I
property
survived.
mogul, growing in properties.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in the next episode, you'll be teaching people about the sacrifice of financial growth because
Definitely.
you are growing. I'm so proud of you.
Thank
Um,
you.
what else can you say? What is the last thing that you'd want to leave people? Because I've been saying, what is the last thing? What is it? But this is like the last thing that you really want to leave with the youth or people who have been at home not doing anything. Your graduates who have their degrees and not getting jobs. What is
So
it that you can
I
say?
would say don't limit yourself to what you've studied. A qualification does not mean anything. What I mean by this is that one thing I've realized when you get to corporate, when you start working, if you are in any field, in most fields, whether you come back with a PhD tomorrow, it won't change your salary. As long as you have an undergrad qualification to get you knock on the door, that's enough to. Whether you study further and come with anything, it will not change anything. Those after what you do after, you only do it for your personal achievement to say,
Yeah.
okay, I've done it. So I would say if you've studied tourism, don't limit yourself to tourism. Apply for anything. Apply for business analysis. Apply for
But
anything.
also, I think we've mentioned something earlier with the whole studying, and it relates to what you're saying with having not to limit yourself because there's people who feel that now because I studied this, then I have to do this for the rest of my life. You know, what and we don't we're trying to move as black people at this moment, we're trying to move on from this whole thing of having to work 9 to 5, working for people and relying on our bosses for an income. So we're trying to break away from that. What also with having to add the advice that you say, what can you add in terms of breaking that kind of system?
Well, one of my previous managers studied BA journalism. She was a journalist, and she had to do a report for an IT company. And then when she got there, she was very inquisitive, and then the person she was asking questions for was like, "Why don't you become a business analyst? I think you would do a business analyst." And she ended up in IT. From
What? Did she study that
she
or
studied journalism, but she was
what?
asking questions, and then that person was like, "You would make a
Wow.
good business analyst." She's
That's what we call breaking this
yes.
the whole
So
system.
let's not limit ourselves to what we've studied.
Mm,
Go to
mm,
that interview, apply for that position, and tell them that I am willing to learn. I just want to learn,
wow, I'm
regardless. I don't.
inspired.
Yeah,
I'm
and
inspired.
it's, study anything. Just apply and tell them that I am willing to learn. I think I can do anything. I'm capable of doing it, and I'm willing to learn everything because there's no such thing
Yeah.
as useless knowledge. But if you will sit with your BSc degree in agriculture and think you need to work in agriculture, you are limiting yourself.
That's true. That's very
Apply in
true.
banks, apply in IT, apply in finance. Just get there and tell them
Apply everywhere.
apply everywhere.
That's
Just
true.
increase your chances and make sure your CV is well polished. Because HR people only have 30 seconds to look at your CV and they receive a lot. So if it's not well written, it becomes a problem. They just put it on the side and apply as many times as you can. Like minimum, apply 40 times a day, different posts. And once, if your CV is well written, you apply 40 times a day, you increase your chances. And when they call you for interviews, be confident. If it's a panel, look at the judges, at the interviewers in their eyes, and just be
Be
confident, be free,
confident.
and eventually something will come up. And yeah,
Right. Well, I hope you are inspired. I hope you're motivated. I hope you do know that you can achieve anything that you want to achieve and not to be limited to anything, as Given Baloyi has said. Well, thank you so much for coming to my Power Talk.
it's a pleasure
All
being
right.
here.
Thank you.
It was amazing.
If any-
Right there.